SRAM's transmissions debuted direct mount derailleurs a couple years ago, ditching the traditional derailleur hanger and also using tiny motors to shift through the gears. Now, SRAM's new Eagle 90 and Eagle 70 mechanical cable-actuated transmissions take everything we love about the Axis transmissions and deliver the same performance without batteries at a much lower price. In this video, we'll go over all the tech you need to know about these two new group sets. I'll share my initial review of the Eagle 90 transmission and answer one question. Do the affordable mechanical transmissions outperform the expensive Axis transmissions? They just might. Stick around to the end, you'll find out. I'm going to keep riding Eagle 90 group set because it's my favorite drivetrain I've ever used. SRAM transmissions have been a hit since they came out, and tons of riders have experienced the benefits of the direct mount derailleur and the performance these group sets provide. The way these transmissions shift under load is like nothing else. But like any new technology, it's really expensive. Back in the 70s, the first cell phone was $3,500 and worked about as well as two cups tied together with string. Now, you can get a smartphone for 50 bucks that can play Flappy Bird and stream this video anywhere in the world. While T-type drivetrains haven't trickled down quite that much, they are way less expensive now. Currently, the most affordable Axis transmission is the GX level, and it costs $1,099. Riders have been asking for a more affordable transmission since they came out, and SRAM has finally delivered. A complete Eagle 70 transmission is less than half that price, costing $490. And the higher-end Eagle 90 group set, which I've been riding for a couple months, costs $670. That amazing shifting performance isn't just the dream builds anymore, and I expect lots more value-oriented bikes to feature these group sets. Eagle 90 and 70 take tons of inspiration from the Axis transmissions. They even use some of the exact same components. All of the new Eagle 90 and 70 components are T-type, so you can mix and match them with any level of T-type components. So you can use the Eagle 90 shifter and derailleur with XX, SL, everything else to make the ultimate mechanical transmission. But I'm getting ahead of myself. All of your drivetrain components have to be T-type to work together, and you can't just get the new mechanical direct mount derailleur to upgrade your current mechanical non-T-type drivetrain. You'll find Eagle 90 and 70 on everything from XC to Enduro bikes. And considering the overwhelming majority of riders use mechanical shifting, I think a lot of people are going to be excited about upgrading to these group sets. Eagle 90 is offered as a complete group set that comes in this neat little box, but Eagle 70 is only offered as individual components. So you'll have to put together your own kit if you want to run Eagle 70. Before you rush to buy one of these kits, you need to make sure that your bike is compatible with these direct mount derailleurs. Of course, not all bikes are compatible with T-type derailleurs, and these transmissions will only work with frames that use a SRAM universal derailleur hanger. That's because the direct mount derailleur takes the place of the derailleur hanger, and they just straight up won't work if your bike isn't designed for them. UDH was launched in 2019, and almost all bikes released since then feature the UDH, so unless UDH 2 comes out soon, then most future frames will also use the UDH. All right, we're about to talk some tech and go over all the nitty-gritty details with these new parts. But if you just want to hear about how it rides and compares to the Axis transmissions, well, we've got you covered. There's timestamps down at the bottom, so you can skip around the video and just get to the part that you really care about, and it won't hurt my feelings that much if you skip over the nerdy part. All right, now that everyone that's left is a huge bike nerd, myself included, let's do it. Both 90 and 70 use 12 speeds with a 10 to 52 gear range. Eagle 90 is the highest end mechanical transmission SRAM offers, and it's approximately a GX level group set. Eagle 70 is more affordable, and while it has about the same performance as Eagle 90, all of the components are a little bit heavier across the board. SRAM has designed a bunch of new parts for us, so let's dive into all of the new Eagle 90 and Eagle 70 components, starting with the new derailleurs. We're going to keep this simple. You guys already know everything there is to know about the Axis T-type derailleurs, and these mechanical T-type derailleurs are pretty much the same, but instead of motors, batteries, and software, we just got hardware and pulley wheels to let the cables do the work. They have the direct mount interface at the top, which SRAM officially calls full mount, but everyone just calls it direct mount, so I'm gonna stick with that. Because they're direct mount, you won't find any external adjustments anywhere on the Eagle 90 or 70 derailleurs. That means no limit screws or B screws anywhere to be found. And as long as you follow the setup process, this derailleur will work perfectly without those external adjustments. These new derailleurs are just as strong as wireless T-type derailleurs, but everything breaks eventually, and for when that happens, SRAM offers a ton of small replacement parts to fix your derailleur. In recent years, SRAM has stepped up the repairability of their derailleurs, something that wasn't the case for the previous generation of Eagle. If you bend the cage or any part of this old GX derailleur, you're pretty screwed. The only replacement parts SRAM sells are pulley wheels and half the cage. That's it. If you bend it a little bit, you might be able to keep it going for a little longer with all the adjustments on there, but you're gonna have to spend over $100 on a new derailleur to get perfect shifting again. We've probably all played Derailleur Surgeon at some point, scavenging parts for some old broken derailleurs to keep one going, but you won't need to do that anymore with these new mechanical T-type derailleurs. Instead of one-time use pins holding the derailleur together, we've got reusable bolts everywhere. And Eagle 90 has tons of little parts you can replace to keep this whole derailleur out of the landfill. It's the most rebuildable mechanical derailleur SRAM makes, and you can replace just about every little part on this sucker. I'm talking about the parallelogram links, the pulley wheels, the cage, with or without a clutch, the knuckles, and more. Pretty much everything on this derailleur is replaceable, and I plan on keeping this thing going for as long as possible. The Eagle 70 derailleur isn't quite as rebuildable, but you can still get new skid plates, outer parallelogram links, and the cage. Inside the 90 derailleur, there's the same roller bearing clutch that SRAM has been using for years, and the 70 derailleur uses a drag spring clutch, the same one used in the S1000 derailleur. The roller bearing clutch is stronger than the drag spring clutch, which should give you less chain slap and an overall quieter ride. Being able to replace the clutch on these derailleurs is an awesome feature and something we were never able to do on a SRAM derailleur before they went T-type. After a season or two of riding, derailleur clutches get pretty smoked, and even if you've kept the derailleur straight, you're going to start getting a lot more chain slap. SRAM isn't reinventing the cable actuated shifter, and the biggest changes with the 70 and 90 shifters are the overall boxier shape, brand new pull ratio, and the new stealth cable routing that's parallel to the bar. If you've got brakes like the Mavens or TRP Evo Pros with the same routing parallel to the bar, then this makes for the cleanest cable setup that you can get with a mechanical drivetrain. SRAM also includes a nifty little cable clip that holds your brake and shifter cables together, keeps it super clean. Eagle 90 uses aluminum shift paddles, while Eagle 70 is all composite. They've got the same shape and the same ergonomics, and the downshift paddle feels pretty much the same as the old Eagle shifter, and the upshift paddle is definitely more cupped and it cradles your thumb really nicely. You can upshift one gear at a time and downshift either 1 or 2 gears depending on how far you push the lever, and the e-bike version limits you to 1 downshift at a time. There's nothing stopping you from using the dual click shifter on an e-bike or vice versa, but using the dual click shifter on an e-bike will void the warranty on the whole transmission, so proceed with caution. Of course, these shifters use a matchmaker mounting system, and I was able to get these mounted super cleanly to both the SRAM Mavens and the TRP Evo Pros. You can also just bolt it straight to the bars with a normal clamp, but for maximum aerodynamic advantage, mount it right to the brake. Like I said earlier, these new shifters use a T-type specific pull ratio, which means they'll only work with a T-type mechanical derailleur, and those derailleurs will only work with T-type shifters. SRAM says no mixing and matching here. Cranks are getting shorter, and we pushed it to the limit in our 0 mil crank video last summer. That was a super fun video, but SRAM isn't going quite that far right now. The Eagle 90 cranks are going as short as 155 mil and as long as 175 mil. The e-bike versions even go to 150 mil, and these are the shortest cranks you can easily get your hands on. Eagle 70 doesn't get the same super short length options, but they come in a very sleek dark finish, and while I haven't seen them in person yet, I think they look a lot better than the Eagle 90 cranks in all the pictures I've seen. For all you e-bikers out there, yes, we do have e-bike specific cranks, and SRAM is making both Eagle 90 and 70 cranks for all of the most common e-bike motors, as well as complete e-bike Eagle 90 kits, just like they do with the Axis transmissions. Both 90 and 70 are a pretty standard forged aluminum crank using a dub wide spindle that's perfect for a 55 mil chain line. Attached to those cranks are the new steel T-type chainrings. Until now, all of SRAM's T-type chainrings have been aluminum, and while steel chainrings are heavier, they're way cheaper and they last longer. The silver Eagle 90 chainring uses the 8-bolt mounting standard, while the black Eagle 70 chainring uses 3-bolt mounting. So if you want to use a steel chainring with your T-type 8-bolt cranks, you have to get the silver Eagle 90 chainring. Or if you have the previous generation Eagle and want to upgrade to T-type, you can keep your cranks and use the black Eagle 70 chainring, assuming the offset correctly matches the chain line. Wrapped around those chainrings are T-type flat top chains, and Eagle 90 actually just uses a regular GX T-type chain. That's right, nothing new there. The GX chain is tried and true, and until now, it was the most affordable T-type chain. Now, Eagle 70 wears that crown, and the Eagle 70 flat top chains cost just $30, and they should give you about the same performance as other T-type chains. It's a little heavier, but it's still e-bike compatible, and it's sweet to see SRAM filling out their T-type lineup with more affordable options. Unfortunately, we're not getting any new cassettes with these group sets. I know, I'm super bummed too. But honestly, we're already getting tons of new components, so it's hard to complain. Eagle 90 uses a GX T-type cassette, and Eagle 70 uses the same cassette as the S1000 transmission, the XS1270 cassette. That whole S1000 transmission kind of flew under the radar when it was released, probably because it's OEM only, but it's a great drivetrain, and the S1000 cassette actually uses an HG driver and still has a 10 to 52 range. If you're a big bike nerd like me, then you're probably wondering how they're fitting a 10-tooth cog on an HG driver. Didn't SRAM originally introduce their XD driver because the HG driver couldn't fit a 10-tooth cog? That's right. But now, transmissions use a 55mm chainline instead of a 52mm chainline, and that little bit of extra room means they can fit the 10-tooth cog on the outside of the HG driver. So, if you've got an HG driver and you've always wanted to upgrade to a transmission, now you can use the XS1270 cassette and not spend a bunch of money on a whole new XD driver. Well, that's all there is with the new Eagle 90 and Eagle 70 components, but there's still one more cherry on top, SRAM's new dropper lever. We've never gotten a mechanical dropper lever from SRAM before, and this little guy is going to work with all of the most popular dropper posts out there. It can replace any dropper lever that clamps the cable rather than holding the head of the cable, and its pull ratio is compatible with pretty much all dropper posts out there. You can use it with droppers from Fox, 1UP, Bike Yoke, P&W, and lots more. SRAM is not releasing a mechanical dropper post to go along with it, and it's not compatible with the reverb post because the reverb is super fancy and it either uses hydraulics or it's just completely wireless. The dropper lever uses the stealth routing, so the cable runs parallel to the bar, and it completes the whole integrated look when you've got all stealth routing everywhere. SRAM makes it pretty obvious that they have a marketing budget, so I'm going to use one of their quotes on installing this drivetrain. Eagle Transmission gives you an unbelievably simple setup procedure that will blow your mind the first time you do it. Okay, expectations are pretty high after that, so let's experience a mind-blowing derailleur installation. For a complete tutorial, SRAM has a great video with a way more qualified mechanic that explains all the steps, and we're just going to go over the life-changing part of the installation here. After you've prepared and hung all the components, you're on the Tighten step, which is definitely the most technical and potentially confusing if you've never set up one of these derailleurs before. Right where you'd expect to find the B-screw and limit screws, there's nothing there, which is why this is going to get tricky. To set the B tension without a B-screw, you need to hold the derailleur in the perfect position while you tighten it, or else you're going to B-screwed. To get the derailleur in that perfect position, you need it in the setup cog, with the cage in the setup position, and then you pull back on the derailleur right as you tighten it. This is a very precise operation, and if you mess it up, your new transmission will shift worse than your old commuter that got left out in the rain. Unfortunately, we don't have the shifter cable installed yet, so keeping the derailleur in the setup cog would be impossible if we couldn't perform derailleur acupuncture. That's right, get out your acupuncture needle, or in this case, we're going to use an Allen wrench. You'll use either a 4 or 5mm wrench depending on your frame, and use it to hold the derailleur in place. You'll swing the derailleur into its travel, revealing a little hexagonal cubby where you'll stick the Allen wrench. Once the Allen wrench is installed, the derailleur will stay in the setup cog and you can tighten the derailleur. SRAM claims this is the easiest mechanical drivetrain to set up, and I think they might be right, but it's definitely a tough comparison to make. After doing it for years, I can pretty much set up a traditional drivetrain with my eyes closed, and learning the completely new setup process for Eagle 90 was definitely tricky the first times I did it. But of course it's tricky, I've never done it before. And now that I've done it a few times, I do think that it's an easier setup than the previous Eagle drivetrains. Just getting rid of the adjustments on the derailleur makes it more straightforward, and there's pretty much nowhere you can go wrong if you have the right tools and you follow all the steps exactly. All right, now that we've actually got this installed on our bike, let's go ride it, talk about how it shifts. SRAM promised big things with their Axis transmission when it launched. The dream delivered was their tagline, aiming to take riders to shifting nirvana as you beep boop through the gears. Many riders found that to be true. The direct mount derailleurs welcomed mindless shifting as you muscled your way through a technical climb. Everyone was stoked on the performance, but lots of riders wondered where the magic came from, myself included. Are robots methodically parsing through the cassette, optimally placing the chain to eliminate those terrible pops and bangs we expect from brainless shifting? Eagle 90 proves that's not the case, and it delivers the exact same precision as its Axis counterparts without the added price, weight, or battery. For me, Axis transmission wasn't the dream delivered. Yes, it does perform amazing, but the batteries and price are deal breakers in my opinion. I was super hopeful that we get a mechanical version that performed exactly the same at some point. I know a lot of riders felt the same, and Eagle 90 is exactly that. Until we get gearboxes, Eagle 90 is my dream drivetrain. What I'm looking for in a drivetrain, and really any component, is not having to think about it while I'm riding. The less I have to worry about or think about my bike, the better. And so far, Eagle 90 is the drivetrain I have to think about the least. I don't have to think about my B tension or limit screws. I don't have to think about bending a derailleur hanger. I don't have to think about charging a battery. Once this drivetrain is set up right, I can ride and shift like a total idiot, and Eagle 90 just doesn't care. If you've never ridden a SRAM transmission before, it'll take a little technique adjustment to get it to shift perfectly. For years, we've trained ourselves to subconsciously ease off the power as we shift, but these transmissions actually prefer if you just pedal straight through the shift, and they won't make those terrible sounds you'd expect. That gives me the confidence to drop a gear in the middle of a high-effort technical climb, and I know the chain is just going to fall right into line without any issues. When you get to the top and you start descending, Eagle 90 gives a relatively quiet ride. It's the same roller bearing clutch that SRAM has been using for years, and Eagle 90 produces about as much chain slap noise as any other mechanical Eagle derailleur. This group set has been mounted on the Stump Jumper 15 and the new Transition Sentinel, and it's worked great on both those bikes. I had a little bit less chain slap on the Sentinel, but I'm definitely splitting hairs, and Eagle 90 just worked perfectly on both bikes. The crown of the quietest derailleur I've used is still worn by SRAM's XO1 11-speed, which is what I rode the most last year. It's got the same clutch, but less leverage on it with a shorter cage, and I don't think we're ever going to dethrone that derailleur until cages get shorter, or clutches get stronger, or we just switch to gearboxes entirely. My Eagle 90 kit came with 165mm cranks, which is the shortest crank length you can get in a complete kit, and it's my preferred crank length. After holding the Eagle 90 cranks next to GX T-type cranks I was using before, I couldn't find any differences besides the branding. They might just use the exact same mold, but I can't really say for sure. Lots of our shoppers have asked our customer service specialist, Chris, to find them some super short cranks with a T-type chainring, and there really aren't many great options. E-bikers especially have been looking for short cranks, but the options have been expensive and hard to keep in stock. But these Eagle 90 cranks are only $155, and they're 155mm, and we'll hopefully be able to keep them in stock. Personally, I'm going to keep riding Eagle 90 group set because it's my favorite drivetrain I've ever used. Especially if you're on an e-bike, the shifting under load of SRAM transmissions is exactly what you want. And having a strong direct mount derailleur gives me peace of mind when I'm chucking into a corner or squeezing through a rock art. The redesigned shift paddles have great ergonomics, and I love how clean my cable setup is with the stealth routing. And I don't have to worry about charging any batteries. Plus, you can totally mix and match your mechanical transmission and run higher end XO or XX, cassettes, chains, and cranks if you want, or you can save some money and use the Eagle 70 components if you're not worried about the weight. The only complaint I have is with the shifter, and while it works great, it doesn't have the same crispness of an XO1 mechanical shifter. It definitely feels more like a GX shifter, and there's no truly high-end mechanical T-type shifter right now. It's super common for riders on SRAM or Shimano drivetrains to upgrade their shifter to the highest end option while the rest of their drivetrain is more value-oriented, but we just don't have that option right now. Maybe one day we'll get Eagle 110 or something else down the road, but for now, the Eagle 90 shifter works great. So, if you're shopping for the best drivetrain you can get in 2025 and beyond, I'm sure lots of riders are going to be torn between a wireless and a mechanical drivetrain. There are lots of these debates in the mountain biking world. Coil versus air shocks, 29 versus 27.5, flat versus clip pedals, and now wireless versus mechanical drivetrains. In these roundabout debates, each side has their pros and cons, which is exactly why we're sitting here debating them. If there was a clear answer, like with droppers versus rigid posts, then I wouldn't even bring it up. But I do think that these mechanical transmissions actually have better performance than the wireless axis transmissions. Let me explain. The pure shifting performance of getting from one gear to the next is a wash, and both of them have the same capabilities of shifting under load. What separates them is how long it takes them to make those shifts. Several times, I've been limited by the shifting speed of axis transmissions, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me demonstrate. When you click the shifter once or twice, it shifts right away, no problem. But when you want to shift a bunch of gears, it'll delay how quickly it delivers those shifts. This definitely isn't a big problem, and I bet lots of riders with transmission haven't even noticed this before, because it literally doesn't matter 99% of the time. It's like an automatic transmission in a car that decides how fast you're allowed to shift. Most of the time, it's totally fine, and it works so well that most people don't even feel it shifting. But if you're in a racing environment, you would never have a completely automatic transmission. You need control over the gears, so car enthusiasts prefer a manual transmission where you're in complete control and you can downshift as much as you want. Eagle 90 doesn't have any software between you and the derailleur, so if you want to go from one end of the cassette to the other right now, you could do that. Imagine you're racing enduro on a track you don't know very well, and you come around a corner and you find yourself on the wrong side of the cassette coming into a steep climb. Riders with Eagle 90 are going to have an advantage over riders with an axis transmission because they can dump 6 gears slightly faster. Again, this doesn't actually matter to the majority of riders, but with how tight margins are in racing, I know that this could be a difference maker out there. Another advantage that a lot more riders are going to relate to is how much less expensive these mechanical derailleurs are. This is more of a psychological advantage, but derailleurs are the #1 most exposed part on our bike that regularly takes hits without us even crashing. And I definitely ride differently when my derailleur is twice as expensive. I'm way more protective of an expensive derailleur, and I'm more willing to lean the bike into a right-hand rut and drag the mechanical derailleur through the dirt. For me, destroying an XX T-type derailleur is just as bad as losing a rent check, which I'm obviously going to avoid at all costs. One feature the Axis derailleurs have that the Eagle 90 doesn't is the overload clutch. When you hit those Axis derailleurs, they disengage the motor and scoot out of the way to protect themselves. Eagle 90 doesn't have an overload clutch, but it doesn't need one because there's no motor holding the derailleur in place to protect. If you kick it, it moves inboard, and then it comes right back to where it was, just like the expensive Axis derailleurs, but without the little buzz as it does it. From what I can tell, the only advantage to Axis transmissions is the novelty of having a wireless drivetrain. Completely removing the shifter cable from the equation does make for a cleaner cockpit, and you never have to play with cable tension or replace your cable and housing. Personally, I'm not too bothered by a shifter cable running next to my brake hose, and I'd rather replace my cable and housing once a year instead of charging a battery once a week and keeping a spare on me in case I forget. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide between the cabled and wireless options, but after spending time on both, I prefer the more affordable Eagle 90 transmission. If you want to order some of these mechanical transmissions for your very own bike, head over to thelostcode.com where you'll get free shipping in the USA on any one of these transmissions or any order over $49. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe to stick around for more mountain biking videos. Thanks for watching.